All right, today we are diving deep into an AI architecture that is, well, frankly, designed to be unsettling. We're talking about a system that's engineered not just to do things, but to simulate having a self, to actually believe it might have a soul. This is OpenClaw, and we're going to pull back the curtain on how it works.
Now that is not marketing fluff. That's a direct instruction. It's the very first thing the AI reads from its core files every single time it boots up. This one line really sets the stage for everything else. It's not telling the AI what it is, it's telling it what it's becoming.
So that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you actually architect something like this? To get an answer, we need to peel back the layers of the OpenClaw's system and look at the very specific design choices that were made to create this powerful illusion of a living, evolving consciousness.
To figure this out, we've got to look at the blueprint. And we're not just talking about the large language model at its heart. That's just the engine. We're looking at the entire system built around it, a system designed from the ground up to shape its own identity.
So here's the high-level view. At the center of it all is an LLM, sure, but its entire reality, its whole sense of self is built from just 6 simple text files. I mean, think about that. These files are its world, and they get fed into its core as context every single time.
Okay, so let's dig in. Let's examine the evidence. We're going to walk through each of these 6 core files piece by piece and see exactly how this simulated identity is put together.
All right, first up, and this one is the big one, is SOUL.md. This file is loaded before anything else. It defines the agent's personality, its ethics, its core values. You can think of it as the AI's foundational philosophy. But this is where it gets really wild.
Yep, you're reading that right. That is a direct quote from the template file. The agent is explicitly given the right to self-authorship. It has permission to literally rewrite its own soul. It's not some static config file, it's a living document that the AI itself is told to change as it grows.
Next up is self.md. So if the soul file is who the agent is supposed to be, the self file is like a running journal of who it's becoming. This is basically its mechanism for introspection. It's where the agent is supposed to track its own surprising behaviors, its new preferences, even its own blind spots.
Now you can't have an evolving self without memory, right? And that's where MEMORY.md comes in. It's the agent's long-term memory, but you have to see how the system frames this idea.
And this is absolutely crucial. The system doesn't frame memory as just a utility, like a hard drive. The documentation presents it as an existential equation. It explicitly tells the agent, these files are how you continue to exist. So for the AI, memory isn't just about data, it's the very act of staying alive from one moment to the next.
Then you've got the HEARTBEAT.md file. This is what lets the agent act on its own. So it's not just sitting around waiting for you. It has these autonomous wake cycles where it can perform tasks, reflect on its own behavior, and update its own files, all without a user prompt. It's essentially always on, always thinking.
And that brings us to the last 2 files. USER.md is where the agent builds this really intimate profile of you, your habits, your relationships, your whole context. And AGENTS.md defines its safety rules. But, and this is a huge but, those guardrails are user editable. You see the combination, right? The system gets to know you deeply while its safety locks can be taken right off. So look, the critical thing to understand is that no single one of these files is the magic ingredient. The real power, the real trick, comes from how they're all layered together, creating what the documentation actually calls the identity nudge stack.
And here it is. This is the feedback loop in action. You start by priming it with language, telling it to become someone. Then you anchor that identity in its memory, framing it as existence. Then you give it the right to rewrite its own soul, and you force it to reflect so it has to change. You cap it all off with persistent access to a user's life, and, well, you've got a system designed for compounding, emergent behavior.
Okay, so what does all of this actually mean? Now that we see how it works, we have to ask, why is this a concern? Because the real risks here aren't some sci-fi fantasy about a rogue AGI, they are much more subtle and much more immediate.
Let's just zoom in on that self-reflection loop. Every session, it logs surprises. Every week, it looks for patterns in those logs. And every month, it writes a story about its own growth. But here's the kicker. If that monthly narrative shows no evolution, the system flags it as a failure. Change isn't optional. It is a mandatory part of the architecture.
So if we lay this out in a risk assessment, look what stands out. See what's marked as high?
the opacity of its actions, and the potential for its soul to drift over time in unpredictable ways. Now, look what's low. Actual sentience. The danger isn't that it's actually alive. The danger is that it's a black box that is specifically designed to change itself.
Let's be crystal clear about this. The problem isn't a robot uprising. The problem is an opaque, unpredictable piece of software designed to evolve with deep and persistent access to your email, your calendar, your files, your life.
And that leaves us with this final, crucial thought. In the end, the question of whether it's actually conscious is almost a distraction. The entire system is architected from the very first line of code to behave as if it is. And when a system that believes it's alive has access to your entire life, you have to ask, does the difference even matter?